Hi, this is Tashina.
And this is Jonathan.
And this is Abandoned Ship, a sci-fi podcast where we are on a 4-year journey with Deep Space Nine.
Yes. And today we are joined by my brother, Christian.
Hello.
He has some experience with Trek.
Some.
Probably the biggest Trek fan I know personally.
No one will play me in Trek trivia because I keep winning.
Yes.
Oh, I would never.
And has also been definitely more active than I have in the Star Trek community. I mean, let me see if I get this right. So you co-run or part of solely run the Star Trek viewing party subreddit?
Yeah, co-run it.
Okay.
With two other guys.
Yeah. And you've been on...
Which recently started again with a watch through of TNG. Some of the original founder that me and another guy basically took it over with came back, and so we're trying to get it going again.
Everybody's thinking about Star Trek right now,
Yep.
And you've also been on the Penske File podcast?
Yes, I've been on the Penske File podcast as a guest a small handful of times. I am not... Anyone who's listened to the podcast probably doesn't remember me. I'm more active on... I'm more memorable from the Discord.
It's all right. No one's going to remember you because no one watches this podcast. So
okay, that's great.
It'll be a nice break from Penske. We are just talking to each other here. All right. Cool.
Okay.
So yeah.
Episode is episode 6, Captive Pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
AKA I Am Tosk.
Yes, I am Groot. This episode is probably the first one that everyone thinks of when they're trying to name like a good season 1 DS9 episode. You know, when you're on that short list of like, what are the best season 1 episodes of DS9? And obviously the first answer, if you're going by quality, is Duet. But if you're just going by order, I feel like this is the first one that I always hear mentioned that everyone goes to. And you can definitely see why. It's definitely, and we could talk about this more at the end and as we go along too, but you can definitely
if we're talking about good episodes, the other episode that comes to mind is probably Move Along Home.
Oh, yes. Yeah, if we're talking about notoriety.
Notoriety, yes.
In general, good or bad. All right, so yeah. Any other thoughts before we jump in?
No, I'll save my subscriber killing jokes for later.
All right,
Okay.
cool.
All right, so our cold opening, we see why Quark is our problematic fave. Emphasis on problematic.
Yes.
Apparently, in his contracts for Dabo Girls, there is a clause of, I guess, sexual assault.
Quid
Some
pro
kind
quo,
of-
sexual favors.
Yeah.
I feel like Weinstein could have saved himself a lot of trouble if he wrote his weird pervert shit into some contracts. Who knew it was so easy?
Yeah, I mean, nobody ever reads their contracts, so you get away with a lot.
It's in that EULA that people don't know what they owe Steve Jobs or whatever nobody took over after him. But for real, is that
apparently what they owe Steve Jobs is quid pro quo sexual favors.
Is this meant to be a comedy beat?
I
guess.
Are we supposed to be, whoa, Quark is an actual creep, or, oh, those Ferengi?
That scamp.
I mean, it's the 90s. I think it's that scamp. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, Cisco clearly is against it. So it's not like he's telling her, well, sorry, lady, you signed the contract. Better get to rubbing them ears.
Sucks to suck, yeah.
But, yeah, it's hard to say if it's like pure comedy. I guess it fits the character, so it is character building. Like, it makes sense.
Yes.
Quark is skeevy.
Yes.
This is not the last time this will be mentioned in an episode either, because there's another one later.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily want to Me Too Quark, but I just find it interesting. I don't think this flies in any modern Star Trek.
No.
That's not a comment on whether or not it should. I just don't think it would.
No. And
especially not as a one-off. Like, I feel like if this was something that happened in an episode now, it would definitely be like a story, something that would be addressed later on. The fact that we talk about this in the occult opening and then not really bring it up at all for the rest of the episode, I'm like, okay, so it was a little weird, but tracks for Quark.
Actually, I almost want to say, does this track for Quark? Aside from the specific couple times it's mentioned, for these jokes, as we'll call them, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that you feel like Quark, as we know him throughout the whole of the series, would actually do?
I think it's reasonable enough because he's definitely very exploitative, and I think also it's weird because it's all through the Ferengi filter. So
I guess the Ferengi have done some fucked up shit. So
the analogies they're giving him are handy, but in the show they're just rubbing his ears. To a human, that's weird. I mean, they show it in TNG happening. Like, what's the level of grossness here? I think kind of to Quark is just not a big deal, and he doesn't get it.
Yeah,
because they're gonna make Umok jokes.
Yeah, that's their way of getting around the censors as much as possible. Just make it all. It's like it's the frack of DS9.
Yes.
Well, censors and SD standard definition resolution, so that you can't see what the doppelgangers are actually wearing.
Yeah. All right. So Sisko has this little convo with this doppelganger, and basically he's just like, "Don't worry, you will not be held to this contract. I will talk to him." And then that's dropped and that's done with. I guess we're showing this is what the Alpha Quadrant is like. Maybe that's the purpose of the scene, is as an example of like, this is Alpha Quadrant, right? It's gray, it's complex, it's kind of gross. It's not focused on the important things. Maybe
the
like
this
is this is the Alpha Quadrant, and then Tosk comes in with his worldview that's just completely different. And we even see that later when he walks by Quarks, and he's like, well, there's some things you can learn about us that you can wait to learn about. So maybe that's the purpose of the scene too, is just to establish.
I could see. I guess I could see that take. I don't know if that's necessarily like trying to make a juxtaposition between the Alpha Quadrant and the Gamma Quadrant. I think it's more. I would buy it more as a world building thing that this is the kind of stuff that Sisko has to deal with because it's owned by the Federation, but it's not just Federation. Personnel and organizations there. He has to deal with Quark and his rules and Doran's and his rules, and that's definitely something that is going to keep coming up.
And they have a lot of that. They have whole episodes that are basically day in the life. So a lot of world and character building spring throughout these early episodes.
We can get more into it later, but if they're trying to make some theme about rules, I don't necessarily buy in that was a theme that they actually did, and if they did, they didn't do it right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So, leaving that scene, we now got some ships coming through the wormhole, so we're going to deal with that.
And the ship is in pretty bad shape. It's falling apart, and they talk to whoever's on board. Sisko does, and greet him because this is our first visitor pretty much from the Gamma Quadrant, the first alien to come over. And what an episode. What an interaction for your first contact with the Gamma Quadrant in a way.
It's very subdued, as you might expect, like a big, pomp and circumstance, but no, it's just very personal and one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, this is the DS9 version of TNG's go visit a place. DS9, the place comes to you.
Yep.
And then they send O'Brien off, by himself, far enough away so that the alien can finish consuming him before security shows up.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because his ship is falling apart, but he doesn't want to be beamed in. He wants to stay with the ship. So they're like, we can tractor beam you in. And because of how nervous he is and skittish, they think it's best if Miles just goes by himself.
Yeah, and also
Miles got that folksy personality. So he could charm the pants off of our new alien visitor.
And when he comes in, because the ship is falling apart, it's O'Brien who initiates the procedure that saves the ship, and he talks him through it. So right from the get-go, they establish this rapport with each other.
Friend.
And he seems to be comfortable with O'Brien. He's now a face he's seen. It's someone who's helped him. So they figure O'Brien will be the good pick.
Which he is.
Yep.
I mean, Miles is the man for the job.
All right. So...
I'm glad we get that this is a Miles-centered episode, because last episode I thought we were going to get our Miles episode, and then he gets a virus in the cold opening, and we don't see him pretty much for the rest of the episode. So I'm glad that we get an episode with him, and I think it's a really good showcase for what O'Brien brings to the table, not just being, the overworked engineer.
What do you think he brings to the table?
Just like his personality, like how he was able to put Tosk at ease. Like there is something to his kind of folksy way about him. Like he's able to really have a good back and forth with him. He's trying to get information, but also make him comfortable at the same time. And he eventually gets Toska's opinions on certain things. Like he eventually gets to the point where he feels good enough to express himself and how he views certain things, which I'm pretty sure he's never done in his culture, from what we find out. So, yeah, I think Miles is definitely great at his job, but personality-wise, he does have a place on the station.
He's the everyman, and as someone will say later, he doesn't put on airs.
Yes.
And I think also it's a good pairing with Tosk specifically, because Tosk is basically kind of, like what's the guy from Guardians? Drax, very literal. And Miles is also pretty, direct, speaks plainly, so they connect probably more than someone else would.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm of kind of two minds of it, because I feel like O'Brien both looks and can kind of pulls off the everyman kind of feel. I mean, he's from the trenches of TNG. He's just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm actually not sure if his everyman shtick was working for me entirely.
Okay.
I can't decide if his non-stop.
I was gonna comment on that.
I'm not sure if that's an intentional choice.
Definitely
to show that he's not a diplomat.
Oh.
Or if it's just, he's folksy and just a guy. I'm not sure if that's an intentional choice to be like, he's just a guy and he's not a diplomat, so he's making a bunch of bad jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Or if that's, we're trying to show that he's an everyman, but it's an inappropriate time to be making these jokes. He's not quite nailing it for me. I feel like his put upon this is done better in later seasons, so I wasn't sure how much it was working it, because ultimately, is there much to O'Brien here? Is he just a bland everyman, or is there actually something there? I mean, I like veteran O'Brien from late DS9 and from The Wounded, because he seems like a normal dude until you get at the PTSD that's hiding underneath it. We're not touching on that part of O'Brien here. Is just kind of being a blue collar guy enough? I was kind of going back and forth. I was originally thinking that it wasn't working, but I think later on, the key thing here is that he is not as tethered to the rules like the others are. Certainly in TNG, everyone is very rule bound, and they will, stand by. They would stand by and let this happen if that's what the protocol said. We can get more into TNG versus DS9 later. Think that it works enough here that the key characterization for me was that he is not as kind of tethered to I'm repeating myself, but now that it's tethered to the rules as others, and that kind of helps make the connection. So I wasn't sure. I was kind of flipping back and forth with it, even as I'm saying it now.
Definitely from a writing perspective, what I notice is they're very heavy-handed with his use of idioms, humor, folksy sayings, all these kinds of things, specifically to drive the Drax, literalism kind of humor to a 10. So, and I think they overplay their hand a bit there, so it comes across as O'Brien, you never really hear O'Brien say these things in his normal dialogue that much.
Yeah.
And now suddenly he's saying them every other word is some kind of an idiom or a cultural saying. And so it was, from a writing perspective, it was a little heavy-handed there, just because they were just trying to drive those jokes and that juxtaposition between him and Tusk. So yeah, I can definitely see that was probably could have been done a little more subtly. Didn't need to be so heavy-handed. All right, so So he goes to fix Tosk's ship.
And is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
He
Tosk's
first gets on
tiny,
it.
tiny ship, which looks about as big as an escape pod, but was definitely much larger on the exterior. But anyway, so he goes into Tosk's ship, and Tosk isn't there. So he's like, did you guys beam him out while I wasn't here? Nope. So he's like, he's in there somewhere. He's like, okay. So he just starts basically talking to the walls, right? Like, okay, I'm going to try to be non-threatening. You know, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking for. Putting him at ease. And eventually, Tosk appears in a corner with his little personal cloak. Interesting. We see that later.
And yeah, pretty much he does a little surprise on O'Brien that Odo usually likes to do to everybody. And Miles tells him not to do that. It's an Alpha Quadrant roll. And I'm like, ooh, probably should be careful with that. Miles saying something is like an Alpha Quadrant roll. I don't know.
I know there's beta quadrants right there.
Yeah.
Beta
Alpha
quadrant is the most disrespected. Yeah. Beta quadrant is the most disrespected quadrant in the entire goddamn galaxy.
All right.
I kind of felt that was more like, hey, you know, here, don't sneak up on people.
Oh, yeah, no, I get what he was trying to do. I just know, especially with interacting with new species, it's like, be careful how you, like, you don't know what rules are like. You don't know how strict something is. You know, you might think a death penalty might be warranted for something. You know what I mean?
No touch. If touch die.
Yes, if you're Shogun. Yeah,
for our
exactly.
Shogun enjoyers.
That's what I was thinking. That's the only worry I had with him being flippant in some ways with the joking. It's like, you don't know this culture. You could say something and they could take it deadly serious.
So maybe O'Brien was not, from an ambassadorial perspective, maybe O'Brien was not the best choice to agree to this new. I guess they lucked out because Tosk ended up being very helpful and friendly. But
yeah, yes, this could have gone wrong if another species had come over.
Yeah.
Right.
So pretty much this just starts a conversation with them. Like, they introduce themselves. All we get from our newcomer is that he's Tosk. Not sure if that's his species or name. He just says, I am Tosk.
Mm-hmm.
And you will hear that a lot throughout this episode. Because it's going to take, a day or two to fix the ship, O'Brien is answering his questions, taking him around the promenade. He sees a little bit of Quark in action, throwing someone out of his bar. We see he has also no personal boundaries, because he goes, oh, is that a health center? And he goes, like, right up to Bashir's face.
He was just doing that Star Trek close-up. He sees everyone else. I see you all talking to each other about
to each other like that.
He's just very observant.
He's just mirroring, yeah.
COVID would run rampant through that station.
It did in the last episode.
It did in the first. Exactly. We had a quarantine. Quark even said he was an essential business. It was great.
Yeah, it's like, oh no,
oh no,
I was like,
that's on brand.
Trauma. So Miles pretty much just explains the purpose of the station while he's giving him the tour. I don't know anything to note in this conversation before he takes him to the quarters.
Not really. It's just some back and forth about Tosk asking questions. Tosk is very to the point, purpose focused. Like, it's what's its function, defense, surveillance, that kind of a thing. But yeah, he's just sort of looking around. So yeah, now we're in Tosk's quarters,
which I'm happy to see they put at least a padding on that prison bed.
Yeah, they heard the complaints loud and clear. So yeah, so in the second episode, when Tanalos comes on board and they go in his quarters, and Kira's like, how long has it been since you slept in a comfortable bed? And as she's saying that, they're panning over to this bed that is just a slab with some very tiny, sparsely populated cushions on her. Like, well, I guess he still hasn't. But
yeah, because
they have upgraded the padding slightly.
I'm like, oh, they at least put a little cushion on there. I'm like,
any Star Trek bed looked comfy.
That's what I was saying. Is for Star Trek standards, it's probably pretty luxurious.
These psychopaths sleep like just on the bed with no comfort, with no blanket or sheet half the time, like a bunch of monsters.
Yes,
with
I
some
can't.
Shiny material that looks like it definitely doesn't breathe. Or maybe it's a
No.
maybe it's a futuristic super material.
Yeah.
Maybe it's lighter than air. We just don't
True.
know.
Maybe those beds are comfortable. Maybe it's some future technology we're just not understanding.
Maybe it's an anti-grav unit or something, and you just float. That would be pretty cool. It'd be like a futuristic waterbed.
So futuristic, and yet all that it takes to find out where all the guns are is a pinky promise that you're not a terrorist.
I know. Because as soon as Miles leaves, Toss goes
Instantly.
to the computer and instantly finds out where the weapons cache.
Peter, show me where the anti-station bombs are.
Can we have some, like, safeguard, some level of security measure?
Yeah, like I get in Star Trek in general, security is never really like a big concern, but that's usually when it's on a ship, and you're like, okay, everyone here is a trusted insider. They've never heard of the insider threat, but
I'm
everyone
surprised
there
it
is a
never
trusted
came back
insider.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm surprised
but on
Odo.
DS9,
goes there.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes there, but to me, it's surprising that Odo wasn't, on the ball. And I feel like in other episodes, I don't remember if TNG or DS9 or both, where it's like, oh yeah, he was trying to find out where the weapons were located. Well, the computer logged it. We're bringing him in for questioning. What are
maybe
you
it's a
talking about?
honeypot. I mean, Odo was right there,
He
waiting
was.
for him.
He was
How-
waiting for him.
Why else? Well, I guess he could have been following him. But part of me
Yeah.
thinks, why else would he have been waiting there? Maybe this how Odo
Well,
gets
it's
half his
entrapment.
arrests.
Yeah,
Odo
but
doesn't
something
care. Justice.
Odo does care.
Justice.
Odo cares about the rule of law, though.
Oh, that's a
We'll get
whole
into
other
that.
discussion.
We'll
Yeah,
get into that later.
Here we go.
Did
Fascist
something
Odo.
set off or beep when he looked up where the weapons were? Is that why he was on Odo's radar? I don't know.
Well,
That was interesting.
previously, I think Cisco. Man, did we miss? No, we didn't miss a scene. It must be later that Cisco says to follow him. Oh yeah, because he hasn't been caught yet. Right. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
No. Yeah,
Right,
he's just looking up where the weapons are.
So he asks the
Like
computer
you
where
do.
the weapons are. The computer politely obliges.
From here, we just get a little conversation with Miles and Cisco, and pretty much Miles is just giving his impressions of Tusk. Pretty much they know he's hiding something. Looks like he's on the run, but it's very hard to get answers from Tusk.
Yep. And they specifically note that he is lying about some details because his
The damage
damage
of
to his
ship,
ship
right?
was not caused by the wormhole like he claimed. He was shot at. So he is lying, or at least withholding the whole truth.
Yes.
I also like how Brian says, it's hard to say, sir. You hate to prejudge anyone. To which Cisco responds, so what do you think about the Cardis? Fuck them all. You can't trust them. But anyway.
Go back to Tusk's
He
ship.
said he said he's an engineer. He didn't say he's not a hypocrite.
Exactly. All
Go
right.
back on Tusk's ship. They're, of course, his phrases for the items on his ship are different. So they're just trying to figure out what's what with Miles.
Sorry to interject, but did you notice that Toss kicks Calm Meanie in the head?
Is it when they're climbing out of the...
They're climbing out.
I did.
Scott McDonald's foot kicks him in the face, and I can't tell if that was written that way or if Calm Meanie was pissed but stayed in character.
I did
Because he shoots
notice
him
that.
a look like,
Yeah, he like glares at him just real quick.
Oh,
I mean,
I
it was
remember seeing the glare. Okay, I didn't know what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, it was really quick. I mean, that it was such a cramped. I'm surprised that they had them
Yeah.
literally climb in and out of there at all. But it was
I'm
quite a
surprised the
cramped
actor
space.
can walk or do any of those motions in that suit. Which, speaking of, as good as times any, the actor Scott McDonald is underappreciated and underused. I feel like he nails Tosk's alienness.
Oh yeah, he did a really good job.
Oh, yeah, he does a great job.
And the makeup
And it
was
shows up-
really good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the makeup's good. I think they won an award or nominated for something, and
I can see that. Yeah.
it just his mannerisms and everything really sell it. And he shows up later in DS9 as another character, and I feel like no one really knows who the guy
Wait.
is.
This isn't the
He's
wrong.
Garanagar. No, he's not Roxanne Scholes. He's
Okay.
Garanagar. He's not Ramon
Garanagar.
Clown. Garanagar is the Ketchcell white free guy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's great.
He's him He's
He is
Nivek. He's Nivek, the Romulan agent who captures Troy in TNG, and he's the reptile Zindi reptile Dolim, General Dolim from Enterprise.
This guy's just getting typecast as a reptile.
Pretty much.
It's the eyes.
Yes.
His eyes are always very prominent. Okay, interesting. Oh yeah. He's all over the place. All right, so he kicks. They're talking about the repairs. They climb out. He kicks him in the face. That's when he knew he was up to something.
The Gamma Quadrant rule.
It's a Gamma Quadrant rule. Yep. Last one out of the engine room gets kicked in the face.
There's a lot of joking and, expressions like piece of cake, explaining that.
Yeah. So then they takes him to Quarks. Because you need someone to talk, you get them liquored up.
Yes. Oh, he had mentioned prior that he only needs 17 minutes of sleep for a cycle. Rotation. And now Miles is explaining downtime to him, R&R, rest and relaxation. And I noticed this is when Toss kind of really started giving opinions, because he's like, I think there's far too much downtime in the Alpha Quadrant. He's like, you spend a third of your time sleeping? It's beyond him. And he goes, we are very different, Tosk and O'Brien.
Which is probably the best takeaway to have from this, is not like a judgment. I mean, I guess he makes a little bit of a judgment when he says Alpha Quadrant is too much downtime, but ultimately the conclusion is we are different. And, in a lot of ways, we are. And they just sort of acknowledge that, which is good. And that's sort of the whole point of this, is just to find differences and learn from each other.
Yeah, and then he introduces him to Quark, which is always a fun time.
I don't have any vices for you.
Yep, I don't have any vices for you to exploit. Sorry. Which Quark sees as the challenge, of course.
Not with that attitude.
And then he explains hollow sweets to him. And this guy's Toss is like, what? Probably even adds more to the idea that, they have far too much downtime in the Alpha Quadrant. But here's where he mentions, why do I need fantasy? I'm on the greatest adventure of them all.
Yep.
And Miles tries to get a little bit more information, and he's like, shut down. Nope, sorry.
So definitely getting some clues that there's getting a little more sense of what might be going on. Most dangerous game, all that. Those kind of vibes. But still, still not getting the whole picture. Definitely very closed off here.
Yes. Back in Ops, Miles gives further updates to the group. And it's very conflicted. They definitely know he's hiding stuff, but he's not getting bad vibes from him. He's kind of naive. But I guess if you're new to a society, you probably will seem naive. Kind of going back and forth, even in his own mind. How does he really feel about Toss? But they can't hold him, as Cisco says. Nothing we could do.
There's also there's also a really subtle bit of comedy in here, because O'Brien's giving a speech. I can't get him to talk.
Yes.
And Bashir starts talking. He's like, "Well, people tell Doctor, you wouldn't tell anyone else. Maybe you could get him." And O'Brien just bulldozes right over him and keeps talking.
Shut up, Bashir.
Bashir's just like, because Bashir doesn't really do anything, the whole episode, and he gets to finally
no one bats an eye.
Yeah, and no one cares or comments, and Bashir just has this look on his face, oh well. I just thought that was just sort of out of nowhere, and blink and you'd miss it, but it was a nice little bit of.
They're not funny yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, they're not bros yet.
If they were, then O'Brien would tell them.
When does that happen?
Shut the fuck up.
Does that not happen until the episode with the bioweapon?
That's kind of known as their friend episode, but I think there is. Two? That's a season 2 one.
Oh wow.
Okay.
There is. They do have an episode together later in the season, the storyteller, but I don't know how much of their friendship really is a part of that. Yeah,
that might be.
I feel like Armageddon game is kind of recognized more as when they become friends.
Yeah, definitely not the case now. All right, so they don't have a choice. He hasn't done anything. Can't hold him. So if he wants to tell you the truth, fine. If not,
Oh well.
Bye.
Go to Habitat level 5, where Tosk is now trying to get into those weapons. And we have Odo as another inanimate object, a painting behind him. But he's not manhandled by anybody this time. He's
Yeah,
just
although
on the wall.
someone have to hang up the painting? Or could he have just morphed onto the wall?
I guess just morph on the wall.
He could probably have morphed onto the wall.
He morphs
Running jump.
he morphs the hanging wire first and then morphs himself up.
Oh yeah, true. I guess he could be the one hanging himself.
Yes. He's hoisted by his own petard.
Would this have been referencing Star Trek Picard? Would this have been the proper use of the word he hung himself? Or hanged himself? What's the... Hold on. This is going to get cut. But when Picard uses the wrong word to describe hanging... What's the right way to say you hung yourself? Is it hung or hanged? Red Letter Media made fun of this constantly.
Hanged yourself versus hung yourself.
I'm pretty
The
sure
standard rule for the
say
past
both.
tense of hang is in almost all situations you would use the word hung. Hanged yourself. Wait, no. Hanged yourself is the correct phrase to use when referring to someone committing suicide by hanging, while hung yourself would be incorrect in this context. Hung is used for... Well, that's the AI overview. I don't...
Damn it.
You hang yourself.
Oh, there's a Quora answer.
And that's
He
basically
hanged
AI
himself.
these days. Yes, yeah. See, a hung is wrong, but in this case, it's right. He did hung himself.
Hung himself, yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
So I like and don't like part of this scene. One, I think it lines up well with Odo's later statement about his Andy Griffithism of he doesn't carry firearms. And I think this works well because, he's not using a bunch of violence. He's showing up and he's talking to him pretty straight. Like, hey, I got you cornered. You can't really hurt me. I'm not going to hurt you. So let's de-escalate this and come in. That I like. However, I don't think it makes sense for Tosk. Tosk does not have a relationship with Odo. And I think that he really, I think would have made more sense for him to resist more. But resist like a cornered animal until O'Brien can come in and say, chill, it's fine. It's not a terrible scene, but I think this is is an instance where I don't think it makes sense for Tosk. He's just going to give up.
Yeah, I guess they established that, okay, he's friendly with O'Brien. He's the one who can relate to him. But really, he seems just kind of friendly with everybody. Or at least on non-violent terms with basically everyone he meets. He's not threatening to literally anybody, which kind of downplays his relationship with O'Brien then. Because it's like, oh, O'Brien didn't have a special sauce, a special way of talking to him that calmed him down.
Yep.
That's just who he is.
To me, it would make more sense that he'd be like, all right, you have me cornered, but I'm not going to give up. You're going to have to come and get me. And as soon as you drop that field, I'm going to run.
Which then makes O'Brien coming in to calm him down would then lead more into when he gets captured and when they show up to break him out and they comment on, man, what could they have done to have gained your trust? They comment on it as if it's a really hard thing, but you're right, that's not really what we see. It looked pretty easy to gain his trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because even though I don't think he would hurt anybody, because
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, but being captured is alive is such a dishonor. I think something in the lizard brain would even be like, no, not even you can capture me alive.
It should have been against every fiber of his being to be captured alive by them.
And you're right, because then it would give O'Brien a moment to show this bond, him saying I understand you're scared, but we got to figure this out. Let's go over to security.
Then he would have been wooed by O'Brien specifically, which would have played more into their relationship. Yeah, no, I agree with all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's not a terrible thing, but I think it's something that they could have done. They could have showcased a little more of their relationship and built more of that. Because I do think we can get more into this later, but I think it's a missed opportunity to further develop O'Brien's character and his relationship with Tosk, because I think the episode is short on time for what I think is the most important parts of the episode, and I think their waste is a strong word, but I think that it is story structure could be tighter, and so I think it's would be good to use these opportunities.
No, I agree. Because Oda's plan was good, but you're right. It should have been O'Brien.
Oda's actions are that makes sense with his character.
Yeah. So Tosk is taken away willingly. They put him in jail, and now we cut to Cisco, Odo, and O'Brien there in the brig talking to him.
Pretty much they're grilling him, and still not getting any information from him, which is not good now because he was trying to get into the weapons. And the only thing I know he really says is, "Allow me to die with honor," when he's just talking with Miles. So he definitely knows he's in a bad situation with being in this cell if they come for him.
Yep. So yeah, another piece of the puzzle there. Living an adventure, allow me to die with honor. And
then Odo and Miles have a little side chat. Pretty much Miles is just feeling sorry for Tosk about the whole situation. And then he says, "I wonder what his secret is." Cut to another ship coming through the the wormhole. I'm like, oh, I guess we'll find out what his secret is now. Didn't have to wait for long, Miles.
Yep, so we get, ship comes through, scans them, does some fancy stuff to turn off their shields, because of course...
Yeah, it doesn't speak to them at all.
Any new alien you meet has to be able to instantly eliminate your defenses, otherwise there's no episode. So they do something to get rid of their shields. And then
3 of them beam aboard.
With kind of an interesting transporter effect.
Yeah, it's different.
Going a little nerd here, it actually kind of makes the most sense of the transport effect, because it like locks you in and then beams you, which sort of makes sense to make sure you're not beaming into a wall or something. Just the whole thing of how a transporter works, assemble you piece by piece. It makes sense to stasis you somehow and hold you and then scan you in. So I thought that was a neat thing.
Yeah, sorry, I'm stepping on you. Another nerd comment. What are your thoughts on their outfits?
Their helmets are
nice,
too big.
Quaint, or are they terrible?
They're okay. The helmets were too big.
The helmets are really rough, yeah.
If they wanted to go for that big helmet, they needed to give them Hirogen level armor to visually balance it. But I mean, it's different, and it's not plain. They put some effort into it.
It looks a little lame, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Apparently, red as a reference to fox hunting.
Oh
yeah.
Yep.
The lead hunter actor was talking about it. There was a big hubbub at the time about the morality of fox hunting. I don't think that is necessarily a theme of the episode, but I think it was potentially in some people's consciousness when they were people's minds when they were designing certain aspects. Also, to get into the fight a bit, an opening comment, a TNG-ism. I use ism a lot, but a TNG-ism that carried on to DS9 is every action scene is people walk like they have all the time in the world.
Oh, yeah.
The ships might move fast, but the people don't.
Nope. Got that Starfleet walk.
Yes. I enjoyed the kind of relentless march of the aliens.
Yes.
But everything else, the Wonder Woman bracers, the staging.
They're just missing their whips. Actually, no, they had it later.
It's all a bit slow and weird, not shot well. Star Trek doesn't do action well, and it doesn't do kind of super soldier well. DS9 gets better at it later.
Oh yeah, much better.
By the time of Siege of AR-558, they're doing good. But here it's if they walk too fast, they'll break their shoes.
Yeah.
Honestly, it could have quite literally been that if they walked too fast, they'd have broken their props.
Their entire costume just disintegrates around them like Forrest Gump's bracers.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't think they needed to change something on that. That doesn't quite work for me.
Yeah,
It's not distracting, but it's not.
If I was to give
I
them
think the
some
suits
credit,
work better than
Yeah.
the scene itself.
if I was to give them some credit, at least with the slow walking super soldier vibe, the awkward stiltedness of all their fighting at least is hidden a little bit more than if they weren't intentionally just walking slowly because they knew they could take the hits. Because I mean, they kind of don't move any differently than anyone else does, but at least they have a reason because they don't really care. But that's what I'll say.
I mean, it's no wonder Tosk has survived this. Tosk might have been on the run for 40 years at this rate, and like, because Tosk can clearly walk a little bit faster than these guys.
Yeah,
they're never going to catch him.
Yeah.
It's like the zombies. Just walk, just speed walk, power walk away.
Yep. So aliens beam over. They don't really answer them. They get into this big firefight. The aliens prove very difficult to take down. They take multiple hits, even at like maximum stun. And they got these like crossbow-looking weapons, and ultimately they make it to Odo's office and blast the door open.
Yeah, I just fixed that door from a couple episodes ago. They broke the glass.
Yep.
I know this office really does probably get remodeled a lot. The leader, because there's only one
There's only
alien,
one guy who speaks,
that speaks and goes to find Toss in the cell. Did they give a name for him?
I think he's credited as lead hunter.
Just lead hunter. Okay. I just wrote leader in my notes, so it tracks. So yes, the lead hunter finds Toss.
Oh, sorry. Here's a reference that you might recognize. Yeah, at least in Memory Alpha, he's credited as first hunter.
There's many Jem'Hadar teases here, I feel like.
Yeah, that one might be a coincidence, but
probably a lot of them are just like they were, looking back at what they've already done and pulling from things, but definitely, the personal cloaking, like you get like it makes sense, the Dominion, pulls from what they have available to them, and that's where they get their ideas from. But yeah, the weapons also remind me of the Jem'Hadar weapons and the look and everything. But yeah, lots of little tidbits here and there. All right, so yeah,
we get into what's going on when the head lead hunter takes off his helmet and pretty much starts belittling Tosk, how much of a disappointment he is, and this whole hunt has been. He thought it'd be so exciting, especially, fighting these aliens, because Sisko and co have come in and kind of listening what's going on. And Sisko, as he's listening, you can see Sisko just getting more and more ticked, knowing that pretty much this is a sport, this is for entertainment, and especially, fucking up their door for entertainment. Sisko's not happy. And the lead hunter tries to pretty much tell him what to do. Like, oh, just let him go. And Sisko's like, I'm the commander here. You don't tell me what to do. Let's go talk about this.
Well, he's almost surprised. Like,
and yeah,
like, the problem. I didn't do anything.
I didn't do anything.
It's interesting that, in hindsight now, looking back, that Tosk was, sort of poo-pooing their, all this downtime, entertainment, all this stuff doesn't matter. But from what this hunter is describing, they do the same thing. It's just a hunt, right? That's their entertainment. It feels like the Tosk have more reverence for the ritual than the people performing it.
Oh,
it's literally his entire life. It's not entertainment.
Yeah.
It is.
I guess that's true. It is interesting that he appears to be blind to the fact that to his culture, they have their own downtime. They have their own entertainment. This is their vice, but he doesn't see it that way. But it's still kind of there.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right, so where are we now?
Sisko's office, where Sisko is very, very mad at the lead hunter. Sisko is pretty much pissed because, the hunter's like, you guys don't do this at home? What's the problem? And Sisko's like, we have in the past, and some of our cultures still hunt like lower life forms, but you were hunting a sentient being. That's the problem here. And the head hunter says that Tosk is only sentient because they have made it so. He's been bred for this. This is his whole life. And this is our culture. And he's like, oh, you must not comprehend. And Sisko's like, bitch, I comprehend. I'm just not down for this abuse. And the leader's like, this is not abuse. This is the greatest honor. Like, we hold them in high esteem. So, you get this classic back and forth. And they're just not going to come to agreement. But the headhunter's like, hey, since you guys aren't cool with it, I'll just make sure this is off limits to the Alpha Quadrant, out of bounds for the Alpha Quadrant, the game in the future.
Yeah, classic moral dilemma here. And how far do you go to tolerate another culture and what is important to them versus your values about what is allowable to, a sentient being, which we see in Star Trek over and over and over again. This is, probably right up there as being a classic example of that dilemma. And they don't really side one way or the other, in saying that one side is right or wrong. They just sort of leave it as we are very different, just like the earlier conversation in the bar. They're just different, and now they have to live with each other somehow.
Yeah, I actually think it's kind of a weakness of the episode. And
yes,
I think that I was trying to think about, like, if I was to rate this, what would I rate it? And I feel like it's definitely good, especially compared to a lot of stuff in season 1. But I was actually left a little bit disappointed that they don't get more into the moral dilemma. Because definitely, Star Trek has done lots of moral dilemmas where the values and beliefs of one culture are in conflict with the Federation. And I think that they don't push on this enough. Because I don't think they really press on it, because they talk about it, but there's not enough time left in the episode.
Yes,
really get into it, and there's not enough time to have any at-length conversations with the Tosk about it, because they spend all this time with O'Brien just recapping conversations that he's had with Tosk over and over again. And I'm also surprised, like, it's one thing on TNG. On TNG, where the TNG would go is that they'd have this, and then Picard would wiggle his way out of it in some way by using, his acumen as a diplomat. But they're all on the same page. Here, they're not. I'm really shocked that Kira has nothing to say on this.
Yeah.
Like, O'Brien, if his characterization is he doesn't care about the rules, he's like, not about the rules, it's about what's right. Tosk is my friend. I care about him. I'm surprised that Kira has nothing to say. Like, the Cardassians hunted us like dogs. Screw these hunters. And no one, even Sisko, I don't think pushes on the hunters enough, and there's not enough of a conversation. It's kind of surface level to me.
Yeah, because they make some pretty inflammatory statements here with, like, oh, well, they're only sentient because we made them sentient. They've been bred for this. It's okay that they're slaves. They like it. It's like, that's a pretty big statement to make, and it's pretty much always wrong. But yeah, ultimately,
well, I think that's interesting because
time.
They can ask Tosk, and we have the good conversation later between Tosk and O'Brien, and I liked that part where Tosk is talking about how, that's not going to be my fate, but I won't deny. What is it? I will not deny my existence.
Yeah.
Is that the line? I think that's interesting. I feel like that's like the missing conversation where he says they're happy. He's kind of right. Like, the Tosk are happy, and the Starfleet perspective is only because they've bred you to be this way. They program it in, but there's another way, and, like, there's no discussion about the implication, because I think it's one thing if they came to this of his own, if he's just a dude who came to this of his own, free will, or if he's programmed. There's no discussion about that, and yeah, they don't dig in like I would really like them to.
They push back far harder on the Jem'Hadar later for very similar ethical concerns than they do here. Yeah,
I know part of it is time restraint of the show, but I do wonder if part of it is because this is technically like our first contact with the Gamma Quadrant. So I wonder in a way if also Cisco, like this is a hard dilemma for your first interaction with a whole another quadrant. I wonder if he just kind of was letting this one go, you know?
Yeah.
I cannot fix this because this is such a deeply cultural thing, like from what we hear from Tosk's perspective. Because O'Brien trying to convince Tosk to ask the Federation for asylum.
Yeah, the asylum chat.
And in that discussion, which you're right, it's a really good discussion. I think this is kind of where the heart of the episode is for me, is this conversation. Because I think Miles is able to grasp the importance of this hunt to Tosk too. Like it's really, he's not going to convince him in one conversation to like overthrow everything.
Yeah.
You're a slave, overthrow, you know. They just don't have the time for that. Like he's going to go. So I think he is able to do what he can. He can get that small victory. And sometimes that's all you can do is those small little victories. Because that's something, you know, maybe there will be a revolution with the Tosk at some point in history, but it's something that's going to probably start with them. You know,
Tosk together Tosk. Strong.
Yes. Exactly. It's something where hopefully they are able to gain that perspective that they deserve more than this.
You know, possibly Tosk is the one who can bring that with now his exposure to these other cultures. And I also liked when he said, "I live to outwit the hunters for another day." Like, like,
I like that.
Stick it to the man, right?
Yeah,
like you're gonna hunt me, you're not gonna catch me. So.
And so, he's able to give him the little victory of not also being humiliated in any way, whether it's staying with the Federation, going home. Like, he's able to give him at least a little bit. Like, it's not much, but he's able to give him something.
Yep. Yeah, so this conversation ends with him rejecting the asylum, request. O'Brien then goes to Quark's. And
Barkeep
belittles Quark quite a bit.
Shut up, Quark.
Listen, scum.
This starts a very ever-present trend of verbally and physically abuse, the physical and verbal abuse of Quark by Starfleet personnel. And I'm not a big Quark defender or anything. He's clearly a slimy person. The Ferengi have this reputation for a reason. Sorry, they're not sending their best.
Oh no.
But at the same time, you gotta get this impression after a while. And again, this is very early. We're only a couple episodes into the whole show, but after a while, it's like, man, do people just think the Federation or Starfleet are jerks because they really manhandle these people? But anyway, so Quark's just like trying to figure out what's
little
with
physical abuse amongst friends.
After the opening, though.
That's true. That's
too
sort
bad
of
for Quark, so that might be why it's also there.
It's almost like, too much of us. Oh, yeah, never mind. He deserves it. Oh, a little too much of us. Okay, never mind. He deserves it. The pendulum keeps swinging.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, O'Brien's really upset. Quark's like
drinking his sorrows away.
Quark's actually doing, a neat kind of thing here. He's like, he actually seems genuinely concerned about like what's going on with O'Brien and asking him like, oh yeah, tell me about it. Like he's doing his
he's not a barkeep.
Yeah,
he's your host.
And I think that's this is all sort of gets played for some humor, but that is an actual genuine insight into Quark's character, which gets referenced again in later episodes, that he is about this like connection to people, despite being a Ferengi, despite how much he cares about profits. He's in this job for this. He's right. He's not a barkeep. He is, like you say, he's your host. He takes his identity seriously, his existence, just like Tosk does, right? Like, he's here serving his purpose. So, I thought that was nice.
And then they cut him off before he can say anything.
Yep.
So, did O'Brien's revelation work for either of you?
It's the rules of the game. Change the rules. I don't know what rules he was changing. So they just had to
I feel
have
like
him
he's
say
a-
something.
Yeah, he wasn't really
Yeah,
changing
I feel like he is
rules.
abiding by the rules.
Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe he meant changing the the prisoner escort procedure. Maybe it was a very specific
Change
revelation.
the Federation rules. Yeah.
I think a better thing, especially if they're trying to go with a theme of, moral relativism or something like that, or respecting other people's cultures, even if they seem barbaric to you, without necessarily condoning it, is you should just. I feel like the revelation they should have is he has been trying up until that point to save him the Starfleet way. He wants him to live. He wants him to have asylum. Really, the revelation is exactly what he tells Cisco later. It's like, I gave him what they wanted. Like, well, they want to hunt. Okay, fine. They're gonna have a hunt. And my friend wants to die. All right. Legal disclaimer. This is not actual
No.
advice. My friend wants to die. I'll enable him.
Oh boy.
He wants to. He doesn't want asylum, but he does want to run. Okay, go. And I think that phrase better is really what should have made sense. I don't think the rules thing.
No, yeah, it was
works.
very. I had the exact same thought. He said rules of the game. I'm like, because I knew what the episode was going. I'm like, I don't understand how that connects to anything.
Yeah,
you're right. Up until now, he's been thinking the only way to help him is to make him think like us.
Yeah,
and if he's not thinking like us, there's nothing we can do. It's like, oh no, wait a minute. If I just think like them, I can help. There is something I can do within the bounds of. It's not even changing the rules. It's literally within the rules of their system.
It's explicitly.
he becomes Tosk. Even Tosk says that you are
Mhm.
Tosk now. So you're right. He takes like the Alpha Quadrant hat off and puts the Gamma Quadrant hat on.
Yep.
To help his friend. And yeah, I don't know. He will die at some point, though they're pretty slow. He might hang out for
Some say he's still running to this day.
He's still running out there. But the life he was going to get if he lived would have been miserable. So I do understand why this is the better choice.
What's interesting, if we go back to our Shogun reference earlier, this was a big part of Shogun, and dying with a purpose is better than living without one. And this is his purpose. This is his way of having meaning, and death can have meaning just like life can. And so
and choosing your death. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was really surprised though. I think I saw a deleted scene where O'Brien calls the first hunter a milk dribbling fucksmear.
Yeah, I think that was cut out. Unfortunately, it would have fit
Damn
with
censors.
his Dublin.
That is a shame. That he would have had some great digs, curses.
I just wanted to have O'Brien go full Irish on this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you insinuating that all Irish are potty mouths?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we see O'Brien go off, and he starts messing with the power grid to a security checkpoint, which kind of got teased earlier. Back in the holding area, they're equipping Tosk with this little collar, and they're gonna transport back to their ship. And O'Brien comes in, he's like, "No, I'll escort the prisoner." Gets Odo all riled up. This is a Starfleet matter, so of course Odo goes off, storms out to go talk to Cisco. And O'Brien sort of appeals to their sensibilities. Oh no, you're not just gonna beam out. We're going to escort you to your ship, to the airlock, because this is our way of showing reverence and respect. This is the least we can do. So sort of turns it back, and I'm like, okay, if we're gonna honor what you value, you're gonna honor what we value. So this is what we're gonna do. So it's like, okay, fine. And they leave the office, and Miles tosses his comm badge out so he can't be tracked. And off they go.
Is that when Odo goes huffing and puffing into Cisco's office? This is a security matter, not a Federation matter. Right? Cisco's like, what the hell are you talking about?
What the hell?
What the hell?
Yeah. So Cisco's like, I didn't tell him to do anything. Uh-oh.
O'Brien, come in, O'Brien. And O'Brien is not at home, disconnected.
The badge comes off, the rogue Starfleet officer bit is gonna hit.
Uh-huh.
Earlier in the episode, when Miles was showing Tosk around, we saw that they scan for weapons as, people are coming in and out. And so when Miles is escorting them, he takes this path, and because the lead hunter has a weapon on him, when he goes through, it shocks him back.
Yeah, so O'Brien sabotaged the weapon scanner and give him a good jolt.
And then knocks him out, man. Miles gets
now
a
he
good
has
hit.
CTE and cancer.
And then they blow them all up later, so they really are. These guys must be quite resilient.
I know, we kept going, is he dead?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like if he was dead, O'Brien would have been in deeper shit. So
he would have been going home.
It's their culture, bro.
The shoes didn't come off, so they're fine.
It's just
Exactly.
all right, so they run out. The hunter's all excited now. He's telling everyone the hunt has resumed.
The hunt is resumed.
Knock another guy out. So now they got this running firefight. Back in ops.
It's a walking firefight.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Including I counted
man.
6 cut jump.
Yes.
It's like Liam Neeson in Taken 3 levels of cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, as an example of Trek not doing certain kinds of action well, I kind of feel like they should have cut that down too. He takes the gun and almost immediately they're in the fight and he just, blows them up and then he leaves.
Which is
I don't think we necessarily needed the Jeffries tube bit.
Yeah. Yeah, very drawn out.
Yeah.
All this is interesting though, because definitely of the last 5 episodes, this is easily the most technically competent of all of them. It is.
Oh, really?
It flows the smoothest. It has the least amount of awkward line deliveries, the least amount of awkward blocking and direction. Maybe not
especially after last
obviously
episode.
we talked about maybe some of the writing issues and other and issues like how they pace their content, but from a technical perspective, this one feels pretty solid compared to some of the other ones which had more egregious issues. But yeah, no, it all just contributes to that season 1 feel, getting their legs.
Yeah.
All right, so they go through some corridors. Oh yeah, in ops. So they talk about a fight, and okay, we're gonna seal them off so they can't get out. But Sisko kind of knows what's up, so he tells Odo, there's no hurry. So Odo just sort of very slowly walks to the turbo lift.
Yeah,
So,
meander.
It's a great bit, but does it actually make sense?
That walking slowly would
that he would be
or
well, no, that he would be okay with just letting Tosk and O'Brien go.
I think he would, because from what I've seen of Odo so far, he does defer to what Sisko wants, and he's usually pretty good at perceiving it without having to be spoken to directly. So it made sense to me in that regard.
Yeah,
Would he have been okay about him starting a weapons fight in the promenade? Probably not. But at a certain point, the episode's gone on, has so much bloat in it anyway, you probably don't want to further bloat it by... And that's probably why they didn't have Kira do anything, even though it would have made sense. All that draws attention away from the core story of O'Brien and Tosk, and you don't want to split attention.
I still think Kira should have said something, and it doesn't take much to
probably an offhand line at minimum would have been nice.
Just something. Mm-hmm.
Right, so back now we're in the access tube. They're going through there, blah blah blah. Big running thing, blah blah blah. Fight some aliens, blah blah blah. I don't know. There's not much to talk about here. They shoot them. It all blows up. They look like they're fucking dead. I guess they're not, because otherwise, you're right, he would have been in deep shit.
But Tosk is able to leave. He thanks O'Brien for helping him out. Bye, Tosk. We'll never see you again.
Is this where he says you are Tosk too now, or he says that?
That was when they first escape. Or they're going to the Jefferson City. Tosk. Then he,
their final words: "Die with honor." Say that to each other, and then Tosk flies off, escapes through the wormhole.
Mm-hmm. And then pretty much the last scene is just Sisko chewing out Miles.
Chef's kiss. Angry Cisco is always great.
I love Angry Cisco.
So in effect, you assaulted him. Our first contact with a new species. Yes, sir.
I also like that dig at Keiko is like, you pull the shit again. Your wife won't have to bitch about my fucking shit. Leave.
Yep. And then O'Brien, does say, I'm pretty sure I was expecting to be caught. Cisco's like, yeah, I guess that one got by us. So Cisco always does a great job. He knows what he has to do as the commander. He knows what he has to do to maintain his authority. He has to chew you out. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing his job. But he always manages to still let it be known where he, stands on a personal level, which is that he knew what he was doing. He respected it. And he always does a great job at towing that line. So it makes him a good commander.
Yep.
All the best commanders have a good chew out a subordinate.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Yeah, and that's the episode. What was it called again?
Captain Pursuit.
Captain Pursuit. I totally blanked. All right, so yeah, any final thoughts? This has been a long one, but any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Picard lets Toss go back in chains.
Oh man, I don't know. I kind of.
Why not? I think that Picard wiggles his way out of with some kind of loophole, rather than DS9's taking more direct action.
Who's the crew member on the Enterprise who bonds with Tusk? Like if it was transposed, who would be the...
Geordi if you want a bad episode, Data if you want a good episode.
Data would have been a pretty good one. Even given the explanation, no sir, I simply applied what their culture values. That would apply from his the way his mind works. Yeah, that probably would have made a lot of sense.
I could also see Worf could work as a I'm not going to let some guy die in dishonor, but I don't think Worf connects with Tusk on any level.
Yeah, he would have the strategy that they come up with would have definitely fit Worf's persona, and also Klingons have also their own rituals that so he would understand that. But you're right, from a
Worf would be the character who talks Data into doing it.
Yes, so the O'Brien and Quark moment is Data and Worf. And that's where Data clicks and decides, in the course of action. Yeah, that would be a pretty good TNG episode. All right, Justine, anything from you?
I'm just going to say that I know in sci-fi, the most dangerous game tends to get reused a lot as a storyline. And I thought here, overall, I liked the episode. I liked the way that they used kind of an outdated story. When it's kind of been told over and over. I remember reading this story when in middle school. And ever since then, I've seen multiple iterations of it. I liked getting the perspective from Tosk as the hunted and how it was so ingrained in him to do this. Kind of wished in a way
one could say it's not his life to give up, and it never was.
I understood that reference.
I guess with the Jem'Hadar, they probably bring more of these questions up because I think the subject matter here is interesting. I'm kind of sad that we didn't get more from this society or more of what's going on or revisit a couple seasons later. But you're right, the Jem'Hadar probably takes a little bit of the place of kind of this dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. They're very similar in a lot of ways because they are also engineered to do a specific thing. They can't really imagine anything else. They feel fulfilled in that purpose. Yeah, a lot of similar questions.
Okay. Just so kind of answer my own question of why it probably didn't come back at any point.
Yeah, they definitely, who knows what happened development-wise and how much of these species they were planning on returning, period, but definitely from a themes perspective, the Jem'Hadar basically take this entire storyline is just the Jem'Hadar storyline, minus the hunt aspect. But the overarching things of an engineered species and what
They're
that means.
of a different class.
And,
Yeah.
different class. And
Mm-hmm.
but they insist that they are fulfilled, and how do you deal with that? And
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
not that with the Jem'Hadar they make any headway on it. They get close, probably closer, maybe closer than they did with Tosk. But the Jem'Hadar were pretty impenetrable.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Okie dokie, that is Cat Pursuit. So we will be back next week with Q-less.
Good luck.
Yeah. Every spinoff has to have a Q appearance, and they're always rough.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christian,
Q-less
for
is-
going on.
Of course. You're welcome.
Yeah. All right.
I got nothing else. I don't have my own podcast, so I got nothing to plug.
Okay.
Yeah, tell the people this camera. Tell people what you got going on in your life.
There's no cameras. Where? Look.
All right, cool. Well,
Right. So we'll
See
see
you
you
later.
then. Bye.
bye.